Okay, let's begin. Hi, everybody, welcome. This might be your first time coming, or maybe you've made it for the whole series so far. This is the fourth one that I've been doing. I'm calling it a processing pop-up. I'm Christina Merkley, and many of you know me, and it's wonderful to see your faces, especially, I would say, under these conditions, to be able to tap in with those of you I know, and welcome to those. This might be the first time you're connecting or meeting me in this kind of way. Extraordinary circumstances that we're all going through. I am a process professional, so I do various things with groups and with individuals, helping them think and feel. And my niche and specialty is visual coaching and using visuals to draw people's thinking and feeling out of them. And if you've been following along, I have an infrastructure called a Working Visually e-community, so I was able to respond pretty quickly when this first hit, at least in terms of North America, right? And started to show up these 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I've just been following my instincts because I have something that can be of help and use to people, I think and feel. So I want to do that, be of help and use. So we are finding our way. It looks like it's turning into a weekly event so far on Thursdays. We'll see how it emerges. I'm going to direct you to, if you're new, to after we do today, you might have some questions because I'm going to refer to some things that we've already built on. So I'll point you back to the community support page. Pat has plunked that into the chat and you'll see the links there, and we'll show it in multiple times, but you may want to find your way back to previous sessions. But you know, even if you're new today, you'll be able to jump in and work with what we're doing and get a sense of things. I'm going to do a little screen share and show you what's up to, I think today. It's just kind of emergent, going off of what I think is going to be of help and service to people. Move some of this stuff out of the way. Okay. So on the left-hand side, it might be a little small on some screens. I've shared this before, and this is the emotional scale. And I like to open up with just, you know, who are you today? What's up for you today? Where on the scale are you today? Because this can really move on us. And as a coach, my favorite question when I'm working with people is, who are you today? And in this situation, we could go to, who are we this moment, right? Especially if you've been here previously, you may have calibrated to where you were the last time, and that may have changed on you, or it may have remained the same. This source, it comes from the Abraham Hicks material, which I'm a fan of and have been for about 20 years. But there's many different emotional scales out there. So many of you from therapy, counseling backgrounds, nonviolent communication, etc. You'll have your own thing. The words aren't so much important, it's more the gist of it. So I'm just gonna rattle off this and ask you to just figure out where you calibrate today, and feel free to plunk it into the chat. It gives me a sense of where the emotional range is and be able to speak to it, and helps you to be witnessed. Down at the bottom is the lowest stuff going on. And this is where we really can turn stuff inside on ourselves. Fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness. Depending on what's going on in your situation, you may be encountering that. I'm getting a flash about unstable internet, so that's happening a lot in the world these days, so we'll see. I might fuzz out in and out occasionally. If we move on up, we go into insecurity and guilt and unworthiness, jealousy, and then it actually starts to shift, and believe it or not, this is a positive shift. We move into hatred and rage, revenge, anger, right? Things start to get turned out, and the pointing and the blaming and that frustration outside instead of turned inside. So that's moving up the vibrational scale. You may be there. Then we move into discouragement and blame and worry and doubt. Starting to get actually midpoint in the emotional scale. Now into disappointment, overwhelm, frustration, irritation, impatience. Then we start to get lighter, pessimism, boredom, Many of us who are stuck in our homes and have the luxury of boredom. Contentment, we start to make a switch here. It's called the hope line, when you start to get a whiff of something better. And it starts to get a little whiff and a little sparkle of it. It might fade and drop down, lower down the scale, but it pops back up again. Optimism, positive expectation, belief, enthusiasm, eagerness, happiness, passion. And the tippy top, which can seem really irritating if you're way down lower, is joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, love, appreciation. So with a group like this, we can have a real spread of people from all over the geographies, all over situations, how this is impacting you, and all over the vibrational scale. So totally okay to be where you are. In fact, I would own where you are. One of the key kind of caveats or rules with emotional processing is feel your feelings, right? Recognize them and be where you are. And do your best not to judge them and receive them. And I'll do that, my best, to hold the space here for all of us to do the same for wherever we all are on the emotional scale. So feel free to plunk that into the chat and I'll get a sense of what's going on. Where are you today? Scroll down all these places all over. Auckland, cool. Oh, the Sandra. Pat says something's going on with the file, potentially. I don't know if that's everybody, but one file there, damaged file. Oh, you already got it. Okay, we got enthusiasm, then we've got pessimism, optimism, hopeful, content, optimism, hopeful, and then a whack of them, doubt, insecurity, blame, but only for short times, background anxiety, optimism, grounding, curiosity, hope, belief, connection, disappointment, yesterday, sad and grieving, today, good, but tend to live in anger, have for a while. So there's other stuff going on besides the current context. Yeah. Hopeful, boredom, worry. Okay, we're all across the thing here. Pat, help me with the lines if we've got some open lines. Okay. If you were here previously, the first two sessions, session 1 and 2, I used a tool called Flip It Good. We'll come back to that in some other sessions in the future. But I want to move into some of the other tools that I've spread out on that page for you, so you get a sense of how they work and you can come at whatever's going on for you at different angles. Some of you are really high up the emotional scale, so you're helping hold the container and probably just also seeing what happens with the processing work, right? Be able to understand more where other people are coming from than where you naturally reside on it. So sessions 1 and 2, we did the Flip It Good. And you can go back to previous recordings and see that. This session, last session, we did the future self. Really powerful to get out there in the future and find out what's up in terms of your individual future. And that was session 3. And it's going to be handy, not necessary, but handy if you have already done that, connected with your future self, given what we're going to do today. Sometimes it's handy, we're playing with states of consciousness, so it's handy to have access to that future self who's out there in a positive timeline, who can guide and assist you. What we're going to do today is called Orphan Rescue, and we're going to really use the now situation and what's getting you, right? What's really landing in your nervous system, what's getting you probably lower down the vibrational scale, right, in this situation. And we're going to use that to go do some inner work. Before we get into the orphan rescue stuff, I want to just see if there's anybody here who A, has been diagnosed with COVID, or B, somebody close to you has, you certainly don't have to say this if you're not comfortable saying it publicly. But if anybody's got that right straight up in their face, or they're dealing with a loved one who's sick or really been impacted, maybe even died from this, I want to give you kind of the first opportunity to come forth in the container if you care to, because you may not be able to understandably access what I'm going to go to in the rest of the session today. So anybody want to pop up and say hello and bring forth if you're dealing with things at that immediacy? Okay.
Christina?
Yeah, please.
It's my concern is not immediate. Hi, everybody. I'm Val. It's not immediate in the sense of a direct health concern of anybody who's close to me, but it relates to a conversation I had last night with my partner, and I was just bawling my eyes out. We start talking about ventilators. So she has lung damage from an earlier illness in her life, and she also structurally has a narrower passageway in her throat than most people do.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, if I get sick, I don't want to be on a ventilator. I don't want any heroic measures. I just want those ventilators should be saved for people that are, you know, whatever, I don't know. And basically said, if I get sick, I don't want to be in a ventilator. And so I just started imagining what would happen. And then I thought, I don't have enough information really about the options. I mean, I presume you can get on oxygen, and I don't even know the sequence of how it goes when you're first sick and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I just got myself into quite a distressed state, and then we continued to talk, and it was actually a really good talk. And she said, well, she was gonna do some research just to see what the sequence is and under what circumstances would somebody need oxygen versus a ventilator and stuff, because we realized we don't know everything that would be relevant there to our own decision making. So she said she would do some research. So that's where we're at. But I must say, I have this I feel like this weight on me from that conversation that I haven't been able to shake off, because it's like it's not, there's nothing happening right now, and she's staying home. I'm the one that goes out, but it's just, I don't know how to come to peace with that
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah. Val, I'm going to say that I actually do think what we've got lined up today, the orphan rescue, is
Yeah.
going to be an interesting one for you to do, to see where it
Okay.
leads you. Because there may, I mean, understandably, the situation is really, upsetting, and the feelings you're feeling are natural to feel in a situation like this. And what I'm about to ask everybody to do with the orphan rescue is find a situation that charges and triggers you. And this conversation about ventilators certainly did that.
Oh,
So
big time.
so you've got your number one step, your first step here, which I'll flash in a second with the template, is to identify the trigger. So the conversation about ventilator, bingo, did that
Yeah.
big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see as we progress along, and it's just taking a curiosity to go, I wonder what else might be here in this situation. Knowing the situation in and of itself is enough, right? But there may be additional layers. That's what this process is about, is seeing what other layers this is connected to. And so that your adult now consciousness can get clarity about that. And if there are other younger consciousnesses in there, which there probably is for all of
Mhm.
us, partners and finances and these things, they stir deeper roots in us.
Mhm.
And, it's a valuable, mature act of processing to kind of tease some of those out and work with those aspects of yourself in the ways that I'm going to show you. It doesn't mean it's going to take away all those layers, but it will bring you more into a grounded state and being able to deal with things to the best of your ability. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, hon, thanks. Sandra, I saw your comment in there about 5 people. Do you want to pop up and say anything further about that?
Hi, Christina. Not really, because one of them's really close to us, and everyone's kind of around, and it's really because it's my mother-in-law, and her husband is already dying, so we got a bit of a double whammy going on. But and they're actually in the UK, so I know the UK's really got everyone's got people over there that's affected by this. There's so many cases, but in New Zealand we haven't got that many, but there's quite a few in our community, and it's been quite a shock, but it's been kept really undercover. But yeah, but I'm just sort of working through that. We're lucky, we're in complete lockdown over here. We can't even go out of the house, really, barely, although we do. But yeah, that's really what I want to say. I'm just happy to be here, and I'd love to hear other people's stories. Thanks.
Yeah, and we'll see as we go along, and it'll be up to you as we do this exercise if you want to play along with it. And you can use this exact situation that you brought forth and how you articulated it in the chat. That can be your entry place to see what comes forth for you. Yeah. I'm aware everybody in the world has their stories. Yes, we certainly do. Just reading the chat. Okay, let me see if there's anybody else who wants to pop up at that level. And then I'm going to also bring up and share a map here and dive into the orphan rescue. Somebody's unmuted. Go ahead if you were wanting to say something. Maybe that's Kaz. Let me just mute her. Okay, let me do a quick screen share again, and I'm going to bring up the orphan rescue, and again refer to the chat for where to get this. You can also zip over to that community support page, and there's an ebook. Last page of the ebook is the map. You don't have to use the map if it's difficult for you to get it or you don't want to. You can just grab a sheet of paper and jot down some notes. We're going to do mass processing. So I'm starting to do some one-to-one sessions with people, free sessions one-to-one if you're okay with having your session recorded. And I'll start to share those soon enough here. So you can really see me working in depth with one person. When we're on a group here, I'm kind of holding space for you to all do your individual processing, and we use the chat a little bit to do that. So it's a different experience. You're not going to see me recording a lot on this map because I'm not working with one person. So you guys are all doing your own recordings over in your own maps. So I'm going to walk you through the steps here, and then we're going to do this. We're going to do it through this forum using the chat and you processing on your end. So I'll take you through this template that shows you the steps of this protocol. By the way, there's different terms you can use for this. I like the term orphan rescue. There's other terms you could use. It depends on which orphan it is. This could be inner child work, inner adolescence work, last week adult work, right? Depending on what memories you start to encounter. Also, if you're shamanic, soul retrieval work, dialogue, voice dialogue, working with aspects, fragments, parts work, right? Lots of different terms, subpersonality work, states of consciousness work, lots of different ways to reference this. Basically what this is doing is helping you unlock stuff that's just out of consciousness and bringing it more into the light of day and making it more conscious. So the first thing we do is we look for a trigger. And in talking with Val and with Sandra, they've identified their triggers. You could always switch to another one. But for each of you, as you encounter what we're all collectively going through, there's an opportunity here to use that situation to do some inner work that's going to help you in the now, and also maybe even help clear up some things that were already there before this situation started. So the first thing is a trigger. Looking around in your immediate situation, looking at what's going on with the pandemic in your circumstance. Some of you are very high up the emotional scale, so you might want to just look for the 1 or 2, 3 things that kind of bug you, right? That do kind of push your buttons a little bit. For me, it's how certain people act in the grocery store. And some stuff on social media. So every time I kind of look, I'm like, oh, there's one. I got a charge there, right? So that's like, I can go back and I can do my orphan rescue and I can keep doing my processing work here. So it's a gift when these things happen. So number one is looking around your now circumstances with what's going on and noticing where you get charged or triggered. And probably most of you understand what I'm saying with charge or trigger, but other ways, where does your nervous system kick in? Where do you get reactive? Where do you get angry? Where do you get sad? Where do you get frustrated? Where do you go defeatist? Where do you lose hope, right? Anything along those lines. So as I'm saying it, you're probably finding things. Take one. And just know with this process, you can run other ones through them. It'll take off different layers of things as you go along, but take one to begin with. So let's start there. Number one, think of a trigger. As things have been unfolding, notice where you particularly get charged or trigger, what activates you. Pick one for now. You can come back and do other orphan rescues on the triggers later. Pat's put this into the chat. Briefly describe what or who triggers you. Jot that down in that little trigger area. Probably nobody else is going to see it but you. So just sum it up in a way that you know what it is, what your focus is. If you care to, you can jot it into the chat. It's a gracious act when you're doing group processing. As multiple people put their stuff in, you can go, oh, I got that same one, or, ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to come back and do that one later. Now, before we go too deeply into this, and I'll come back, you can jot your stuff in there. Shelley's got people telling me how I should feel. The safety of my son near Manhattan. Hi, Joelle. Yeah. My neighbor doing extremely noisy building work while we're in a lockdown. Okay, politicians. Worried about the homeless, yes. Coworker who's pessimistic and has been for years. Trump's press briefings, yep, a lot of people are going to get triggered by Trump. Family members who appear laissez-faire. Hi, Mary. Yeah. Another Trump briefings. This is where we're going to get a lot of Trump work done. Yeah. Daughter crying or trying to work at home with 2 active little toddlers. Aww. More homeless people, refugee camp in difficulty. Politicians, liars generally, mixed messages. Yeah, gets ya. People not being able to be close to their loved ones who are dying. Yes. Okay, good work, everybody. You can keep those going. I'm going to go to the next one for those who are ready. We're going to go over, before we get more into the triggers and the orphans here, switch over to the other side of this, where it says the best part of being my current age. You can write your age. I'm 51. What's the best thing about being 51, or whatever your age is? Independence, uniqueness, creativity, power, autonomy, interdependence, connection, love. Those are ones that come up for me. What we're doing here, and if you can't get it in the current situation, understandably, go before this happened. Go back to before this all started unfolding. And what was the best part of being that age? And yes, there might be a bunch of stuff that's not great about your current age, but we're looking for the stuff that is. Know my gifts, embracing my love of art, financially secure. Yeah. Independent, strong, healthy, creative. Great. We're anchoring. This is an ally. This current part of being your current age, that's an ally. This is an adult consciousness that we're anchoring. Going to come in handy when we go in there and deal with the orphans. And if I'm working one-to-one, it's a little tricky when I'm working with a whole group of you. And you'll have to help do this yourself. When you sometimes get lost in the orphan and become the orphan, we want to kind of separate you out so that you maintain your adult consciousness when you're in there with the orphan. So you really want to lock in this, what's the best part about being your current age. Again, if it's too tough in the current scenario with the pandemic stuff, go back a couple of weeks or whatever it was before this happened and talk to it from there. Those of you who are coming in late, we're doing orphan rescue. Number one, write down a trigger, something from this situation that gets you, that activates you emotionally. Write that in the trigger area. Number two, what's your current age? Put that in the little bubble and then extract out what's the best stuff about being your current age. If you can't get it with the pandemic, go back a couple of weeks. Evoke that adult consciousness. Now I'm going to get you to go back into that trigger and go back to whenever that thing happened. Val example, conversation with the partner about ventilator. Sandra, when you got the news, certain people and their diagnosis. And I know it's painful to go back to those trigger times, but we're going to just stay there for just a little second. Go back to that moment in time for everybody where your trigger occurred. If I can go back in front of the woman who was doing such and such in the grocery store, right? What flashed through my body at that time, right? What are the emotions, the sensations, thoughts, right? Get really curious and describe what I call the cocktail of emotions. When that thing happened for you, tease it out. So for example, me with the woman at the grocery store, first there was indignation and self-righteousness, anger, pissiness, and then the thoughts, who do you think you are? You're so self-centered. What about the other people? Like, because I can have no qualms about saying something, but the people who can't, or the people who are worried, who won't, right? So there's an example of just kind of extracting it out. What's the stuff that's going on in your trigger? Yours might be very different from my situation. You might not be. That's why we did the emotional scale, right? I'm there in that anger, indignation place. You might be something much deeper, or maybe something lighter up the scale.
Where are we supposed to write these things that you're talking about right now?
I want it right next to the trigger. So go back to one and kind of collect it around that. Thank you. Collect it around that story.
keywords kind of reflecting the emotions.
Yep,
Or
yep. Go back to that moment and get really curious about, wow, how did that, you're reacting and triggering. Go back, go into the body and see how that thing that you encountered, how does it impact you? Notice sensations in your body. Notice emotions that happen. Notice thoughts that might be flashing through your head. Notice postures you may assume, right? So get curious. Notice what emotions, body sensations, thoughts, or other things happen to you when you become triggered. I call this your interesting cocktail of emotions or sensations. Let's see if we've got any of these happening in the chat. Did you plunk that one in, Pat, already? Okay, so Rondalyn, you've got rage and indignation. Yeah. And you probably got some hands on the hips thing or something going on too. Yeah. That's mine. That's a mine in the grocery store, right? Yeah. So getting curious. Pat, it's the get curious. Notice what emotions one. Yeah. Jude, you're doing a great extraction. We can see in there shame, disappointment, regret, sadness, grief, lost opportunities to say goodbye. My presence doesn't really matter. I don't really matter. Good extraction. That's really important. Those are limbic sentences, right? The things that really land in the limbic system, in the nervous system. That's going to come in handy with what we're going to do next. Karen, you've got frustration, powerlessness to communicate and convince others. And notice how that makes you feel in your body, the emotions that brings on. You got the emotions, powerlessness. Marlene's got one also at the grocery store. Anxiety about social norms. So probably confusion. Can I put it back on the shelf? Am I putting anybody at risk? So confusion, concern, shame, being a bad girl. So kind of knocks you back to that younger. Jolene or Joelle with your son in Manhattan, panic, laser focus, mama bear, wanting to keep safe, desperation, confusion, concern. Okay, looks like you guys are doing good work. Okay, now really focused on that cocktail of emotions. You're in this situation that's quite current. Now I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to take that focus and I want to turn and look towards your past. And it's like being a little sniffer dog. You're going to go sniff for something that has this exact same cocktail of emotions. Where else? Somewhere in the past, probably. It could be quite recent. You might zip somewhere, adolescence, childhood. You can also even zip if you're a meta kind of person, metaphysical person. You might zip into what some people call past lives or the collective unconscious. That cocktail of emotions, it's not unfamiliar. Yes, it's happening in the now, but you're familiar with it somehow. Somewhere else it has occurred for you. Whatever flashes in terms of a remembrance, where's the match? Trust where you're brought. And you might, sometimes this happens very quickly, that you're brought to multiple places. I worked with a woman yesterday. She was brought to 9 years old, and then close on its heels was an incident at 5 and 6. Other people I've worked with, it's something that happened a couple of weeks ago. And then, you know, maybe they're in their 50s and they went to something early in their career. So just trust where you go. Where's the match? There's some sort of memory, something that has happened to you previously, that this same cocktail of emotions, these same sensations, these same thoughts running through the head, these same reactions occurred. Trust the process. You may already cognitively see how this matches up. Don't worry if you don't. It'll probably make more sense when you get to the end of it, but I can tell you, having done this a bazillion times with myself and other people, it always makes sense. This is where the subconscious comes in. It knows. And we're doing right brain work. This is how the subconscious can communicate. It gives you that flash. So trust it. If you see something, if you just feel it, if you just know it. Sometimes people smell or taste stuff. Go with whatever kind of clear stuff hits you, your senses. And if anybody's there yet, if you nailed it, write that age you are in that circle. Just like the other section, you wrote your current age and the best things about it. This one, if you get a flash of something, write that age in that memory circle. And then whatever that thing was, it might be an incident, right? A single incident thing, or it can also be from that whole era of your life. For some, it might be a couple of months or a year, or it could be your whole childhood, right? So totally okay if you've got a stretch of years as opposed to an incident. I'm just going to myself with the grocery store because I haven't worked that. So I'm going to parallel process here. And if I go to that cocktail of emotions, my self-righteousness, my indignation, my wanting to kind of protect other people who are more defenseless, I flash back to school. I get two. I get one in grad school and I get one much younger. My grad school one where I felt that international students were being picked on unfairly. I was an international student as a Canadian being in the US, but these are international students who had English as second languages. And yeah, I expressed my voice to kind of stand up for them and the unfair things I thought were happening for them. Then I also flashed to something younger, and I did a lot of protecting of my younger brother in schools, and we traveled a lot as kids. And I was always able to kind of fit in and express myself, and he had a much harder time. So that's an example of where I, boom, boom, when I identify those emotions, those instances come up for me. And that's soul retrieval work. My example is a little more benign than some of the examples, but there's still some stuff going on there and some stuff for me to retrieve. We've got Shelley with mommy. Hello, mommy. So you've gone to something with mother. Okay, Val, yeah, you've gone deep, and that makes sense with your situation. So you went to your mom's death and finding out your dog had been put down by your mom and you hadn't been asked if you would take him. Oh, yeah.
I probably could have not taken him because of my circumstances, but I just couldn't believe that she would do that and not even tell me.
Yeah.
I think she was trying to protect me, but it was like,
Yeah, I would just trust the process that you've been brought here. So, and it's connected to this now situation. It's at least a layer. Yeah. Heather, I see yours more as a statement. So am I strong enough to help others and not get pulled down or in? I feel strong, but that could change on a dime. Maybe you're just responding to an earlier question. But I focus in on that. If there's, you know, if that's the now situation, where else have you felt that? Come up with, you know how this goes, come up with an age and an incident. Mary's getting back to her mid-20s, first love, lack of empathy, not a team player. Okay. Anybody getting stuck? Feel free to unmute and I'll help you if you're getting stuck. Okay, there you go, Heather. You go back to working with the fires not that long ago, several years ago. Good. And breathing, right? Became a priority. Breathing, that's interesting with the lungs. Marlene, you go back to an adult memory of being a supervisor, not knowing how to respond when employees would threaten to leave. Worry about how to get the work done. And then you also went to a younger one. You went way back to 2 years old and moving every week to another relative's home and not knowing how to fit in the house rules. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, goosebumps on that one. That rules about the grocery store takes you back to that 2-year-old and not knowing the rules. Good work, people. This is awesome. Oh, Rondlin getting called the N-word at 9. Fighting back, told you were wrong, made wrong for a long time. Yeah, sweetheart. And Elsa, your mom's departure when she moved to the US when you were 6 and not seeing her for 5 years, anxious and abandoned, reunited at 14. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So this stuff is, you know, what stirs up when we encounter this stuff that's survival system provoking, right? It takes us back to danger, danger, Will Rogers, from when we experienced it from before. And that's part of the complication in what's going on. 7 years old and chilly, Joelle. Yes, needing to keep your sister safe. Aw. Jude, 5 years old when Kennedy was shot. Feeling invisible. Okay, Ashanti, resonating with you, what you're saying, Rondalyn. Yeah, same thing, primarily white school. Okay, these are the orphans. Yeah. Okay, so now you've got number 3. Very poignant. I can feel my back is all goosebumpy, and that's the feeling of some deep work happening. Okay, here comes the rescue. Here comes the rape brain stuff. Trust your ability to do this. Those of you who are particularly left brain, this is going to seem a little weird. I ask for your indulgence in being a little weird, but times kind of call on doing some things out of the ordinary. So what we're going to do is we're all going to travel back in time. With that consciousness that we evoked, right? The best thing about being your now self, your adult consciousness, is going to go back in time and place. Go find that orphan. Where is he or she? You'll know where they are. Are they back at the school? Are they back at that home? Are they back in those circumstances? The first thing you're going to do if there's anybody else around is you're going to freeze frame everything. Any other people in there? Anybody doing anything? Just freeze it. The only one that remains mobile and aware is the younger you. So your now consciousness is going to go back like a beam, and is going to go find that orphan, and is going to materialize in front of that orphan. Now, the first thing you have to do when you show up in front of an orphan is explain who the heck you are. You guys, if you're alone, you can say this out loud. If you're with somebody and it feels uncomfortable or embarrassing, just do it inside your head. But just speak to that orphan. Sweetheart, hi. Basically, I'm your future self. To them, you're the future self. If this is challenging for you to do because your now consciousness maybe has some stuff going on or isn't quite fully developed, call on your future self. If you were here last time, we connected with the future self. If you weren't here last time, you can do it like this. You can do it like a snap. You can just send out a beam to, hey, future self, go out to a positive timeline out there where your consciousness has grown and it has the capacity and the resources to work with you and this orphan. And those of you who did have a future self last time, and for whatever reason you feel you need extra support, go for a future self. Allies, right? We're dealing with consciousness. So you've shown up in front of this younger version of you. Could be an adult, could be an adolescent, could be a child. It could be something that doesn't make sense, like a past life or a collective unconscious thing. Just trust whatever you're getting. Your consciousness shows up in front. Freeze anybody else around and begin a dialogue with that orphan. Basically, it's, hi, honey, I'm here. I'm here because there's some stuff going on for me in 2020, and my reactions to it made me realize that you're still here existing in this time and place. And I need to help you. Some of them will have relief when you show up. They may have been putting out a call for quite some time, and they're glad that you've finally shown up. And apologize if you need to. Sorry, I'm doing the best I can. I didn't really realize that you were here, or I knew you were there, but I just wasn't ready to come deal with this. Or I didn't have the resources and now I do, and I got here as quick as I could. Find your way with any sort of affection or physical support. Orphans respond in different ways. Some of them are touchy-feely and some aren't. So find your way after they respond to you, and if they're okay and they're kind of getting who you are future self-wise. If it feels appropriate to put an arm around them or pull them close or sit down somewhere with them, go ahead and do that. And talk to them, because you have a consciousness that's ahead of theirs. They need to hear some things from you. What are your soothing thoughts? What is your perspective? What do you now understand that they didn't? If you have a hard time with it, turn it over to your future self or your future self and let them speak, because you might need to hear some of those things from your future self and future self. So soak it up. So look after that orphan. Some of the orphans, especially teenage ones, right, may rebuff you, may be kind of in bravado. That's okay. Let them be how they are. give them appropriate age, space, and stuff they need. Now, there is something we can do here for them, and you're going to see if they would be up for a rescue. Some orphans, what you just did with kind of educating and talking and soothing and giving your perspective, sometimes that's all that the orphans need. They can just keep continuing on in the timeline as it happened. So some of yours, they might not want a rescue or need a rescue. They just go back inserted into where they were with this new kind of awareness that can change things for them. Others, no way. They're like, get me out of here. So if yours is get me out of here, you got to figure out where to bring them. And I'm going to give you some options. You could bring them into your now 2020 circumstances. For some of you, that's going to be okay. A lot of you not, because we got some stuff going on in 2020. And we may not be able to provide a proper environment for an orphan. So if we can't do it, who can? Can the future self, the future self, negotiate, find the right home for this orphan? And let the orphan know, it's not that I don't care about you. I'd love to bring you into my now, but I got some stuff going on, so you're better going to the future self or the future self. I'll come visit, I'll come see, I'll check in on you. This is all about love. I love you. Some of your orphans already go, you process really fast, you know where they need to go. Go ahead and bring them there, whether it's into your now or it's into the future self, or some other place, some other ally, some other environment that's good for them. Go ahead and move them forward in time and get them set up there. For those of you who are having a hard time with the orphans, you may have to kind of negotiate. Find out what their yeah buts are. If they're reluctant to leave, find out what the yeah buts are. And just work back and forth with them, conflict resolution kind of wise, mediation wise. Address the yeah buts. Sometimes there's concerns about who's around them. They don't want to leave parents or siblings or something. They don't have to if they don't want to. They can continue and stay there. But if they do want to leave, just reassure them that those people have gone on and they're responsible for themselves. And in fact, everything else has actually moved on, but this little part has been stuck here, kind of frozen in time, emitting some stuff for a long time, operating like a magnet. And they don't have to do that anymore. If anybody's stuck, hold on to it. And once we're done here, I'll help you if there's any stragglers that are still kind of hanging on. So it's called bringing them home. Find out where their home is and set their home up for them. This is like a redo, especially if you've got an adolescent or a child in there. You're basically taking over some parenting. And love to the parents. They probably had their own thing going on, why they couldn't do it, or whoever this is. But now you get to take over the job and you get to give this part of you whatever it needed that it didn't get. So bring it into the environment that they're supposed to go to. See what needs to be set up. For the younger ones, they're going to need a room. They're going to need toys, probably some art supplies if you're into visual skills. The older ones normally need some independence, but still some supervision. Maybe a little bit more room of their own. maybe some cool mentoring or education, alternative kind of stuff, friends, community. They get to have whatever they want, so they can create that with the future self and that future self, whoever they're working with. Now, if you are moving those orphans, if you've done it, if you've integrated them into their environment, their new environment, and you're getting it set up, I and my demolition team are going to run along behind you, and you can also bring your allies, and we're going to collapse down this scene. Whatever you extracted out of them out of, we're going to collapse it. I have this whole demolition team who shamanically will take care of this, going into those different scenarios and situations that you plunk them from, and we're collapsing it down and doing a little quantum soup on it. It's turned into a little black hole, and poof, gone, never to return to again. That little orphan can't get back there even if it wanted to. It doesn't exist anymore. And back to that orphan, what setup needs to be created for your orphan in order for him or her to be safely cared for in an age-appropriate way? If you've got an adult orphan, well, they've got their own kind of setup. They don't probably necessarily need to live right in there with you. So where do they want to go? Marlene, you're dealing with one who's, you know, old enough, she's supervising people. So she's probably got her own home or set up. You'll figure out where she wants to be. These orphans have incredible skills and abilities. So the next thing to consider, even if it's a young child, an adolescent, or an adult, any quality skills or abilities that your orphan has. Those younger ones bring things like playfulness, trust, awe, fun, creativity. Those of us who are creative people and visual practitioners, these come in very handy, these younger parts of us. We can be working away doing our studio work. We don't want them out in the job front often, but they can help us in our studios. So any quality skills or abilities that your orphan has that may be helpful to you. Just knowing that this orphan brings a lot with them. The younger ones, they're probably just going to be playing in whatever environment that is, being a kid. And those abilities are just going to kind of soak in you, just being around them and them being well looked after. The adolescent ones, you know, you may be able to start to set up some mentoring kind of situations. Those of you who are in leadership positions or different kinds of roles or change agents out there in the world, those adolescents and those young adults and those adult aspects of you, they can become team members with appropriate boundaries. You're in charge, you're the leader. They don't get in the driver's seat, so you got to be very clear where the lines are. But some of your orphans may be interested in it, and it may be appropriate for them to work with you or to work with your future self, future self, wherever you've housed them. And just like when you have new teammates, you have to set some boundaries. So are there any boundaries that you need to set with your orphan? this is so key, because we're all getting triggered by this stuff in the now because we've got our orphans in driver's seats that they shouldn't necessarily be in. So for the little ones, probably the boundaries are, don't you worry about this, little one. When I'm working on my business stuff, or I'm in my relationships, or I'm dealing with the outside world, I'm dealing with calamities happening in the world, I'm in charge. You don't have to worry about it. I got it. Just play. Just be safe. Just do your creativity. You don't have to do anything else. That is a big aha for a lot of our orphans, because they were a little too old before their time. And a lot of them had to be responsible and do a lot of stuff that probably they shouldn't have had to. So now they get to be kids. Just tell them, your job is to be a kid. I'm going to look after you. I'm capable. Get out of my adult business. Just be a kid. Just rest. Just have fun. Traumatized ones, they're going to need some rest and some recovery and some proper help. So get them counselors. Get them really skilled, key people who know how to work with them to help them with whatever recovery process they need. And no pressure on them. They're just healing and recovering. As we move up older, boundaries, those adolescents, well, depends. If you had a wild child, you're going to have to work with that wild child and probably put some boundaries on them so that they get some supervision and some support. You become more of a mentor, a sister or a brother, a big sister, big brother, right? That kind of role for those adolescents, young adults. They still need help and supervision, though, to some extent. And, you know, somebody who's got their back and somebody who can guide them through the world and show them the ways, right? Show them the ropes, explain things to them, finances, sexuality, whatever it might be. And same thing on up to the adult orphans. So if this is trucking along well, you've set up that orphan in that new environment and you've negotiated some boundaries and you've got a sense of their abilities that you will be benefiting from to some extent, just even them just being safe and secure and just being able to relax. And before you wrap this up, especially if you've left them with the future self or future self, you want to set up some communication, some lines of command. If they need anything, if your orphans need anything, they go to who's in charge. If it's in your now environment, you're in charge. If they're in their future self's environment, the future self is in charge. If it's a future self, then them, or any other place that you have negotiated for them to be safely. Put in that line of command, right? Who's in charge? If they need anything, who do they go to? Especially if they're not with you and you're doing your thing in 2020, you don't need the orphans coming to you. Have them go to who they need to go to, and then that person can get in touch with you. So if they need to, the future self can alert you, the future self can alert you. You want to set up some communication. The orphans go to them, and then if need be, they go to you. And how do the future self or future self get in touch with you? If they need to get in touch with you, set up some sort of signal. It might be they tap your shoulder or tickle your nose, or they text you or phone you. They show up in your dreams. So who does your orphan go to if they need anything? What is the chain of command in terms of communication? With that set up, you've probably got a good working agreement, right? So just check to make sure everybody's okay. Is the orphan good? Ask the orphan, you okay? You need anything else? Do we have this set up well for you? Any yeah buts? If they have any yeah buts, work them up, work them through. Communication set, line of command set. And just start your process of goodbyes for now. Communication will happen if it needs to. Your subconscious will alert you if it needs to. You've set this all up. Say your goodbyes. Be affectionate, be loving. Know they're in good hands. Know you've got the communication set up. Bow to that future self or future self, future. Thank them. Acknowledge them. Respect them. And when you're ready, make your way back to the now. So time traveling back, having come back from quite the journey, quite the inner work triage, coming back into the now. This is where your left brain will start to kick in after you come back from that. Whoa, looking at the big picture. There's some other things up here. You can tick this box if your orphan wanted to be integrated in, leave their own timeline and go somewhere. Was there an invitation extended? You can just do a little tick mark if that happened. And then as you bring your consciousness back to the now, right here in 2020, back in our now environment, how do you feel? Check your somatic. If something has been done here, you're going to feel something in here that has at least a smidge of relief. So notice your body, notice your somatic, notice your emotional state. That will tell us whether you accomplished an orphan rescue or if something's still a little undone, left undone. So how do you feel? What do you notice in your body now? Up here in the cloud is just kind of can be where you took them or any little details from your journey. You can just jot those up in that big cloud at the top. I just leave that for extra space in case I need it. But number 5 is when you come back from that journey and your now self goes, whew, wow, that was interesting. How do I feel? Usually you're going to feel a little bit settled better in a different way. And let me just say to the left brain, we'll see how it goes, left brain. The proof is in the pudding. This was right brain work. We will see as you go along. You may find that it takes at least one of the edges off of whatever that trigger or situation was going. So next time you're in the grocery store and somebody does something similar, wow, what do you know? You realizing I'm not acting the way I did last time. Or, you know, you see Trump on his briefings and you're like, huh, I didn't do my thing. I didn't throw something at the TV. You got a ring of it off, right? There can be multiple orphans embedded in multiple incidences. So now just get curious, right? As you're out and about, this situation that we're all in has multiple triggers going on. And if you care to, this is another way of how to do your inner work using this situation, right? It's all of us being in a shared situation around the world is incredible. And yes, of course, if you've got the immediate happening, it's going to be a whole other kettle of fish going on. But if you are kind of in the mid zone of that emotional scale, doing your orphan rescue work can be something that you can do, right? You are actually in control of that. And if you are sequestered for a while and twiddling your thumbs as you're watching the news or you're going about the things you have to go about, dealing with people who are in your home that you're there with in unusual circumstances, your triggers are going to happen. So here's a way to use the triggers and the charges, right? And get your inner work done. It'll make it easier for you being in this situation. It'll make it easier for those people around you. And ultimately, we're all connected. It's all one. This is unity consciousness. It makes it better for everybody. And I'm a big believer that whatever we're merging into a new thing for us as humanity and a collective. And all of us, I think, who are conscious enough to do our inner work like this, that can be our contribution, right? We're selfishly doing it for us, but we're also doing it for everybody, because everybody is us at an energetic consciousness level. So that, my friends, is Orphan Rescue. Another offering to you, should you care to take it. There's a full ebook over on the community support page that basically takes you through the steps that I took you through. It gives resources for different influences that I've had over the years that went into building the protocol. It gives examples. So I think that's a pretty good ebook. And now that you've got the map and understand the protocol, keep doing your work. You can use it multiple times, right? On yourself to keep working those layers. And point the way to other people, share it with other people. Some of your friends, some of your family members, right, too, may be able and willing to join you in this consciousness work. And it can become shared language. It's actually really handy when you are in close quarters with people, if you have some shared language to go, ooh, my orphan just came out, right? To have that shared language and they understand theirs, and you start to have this consciousness thing between you of understanding that, of course, we get triggered and charged, and taking ownership and responsibility for that and doing the work, right? And then being able to come to each other from that place of consciousness. I'm seeing some wows happening, some thank yous in there. I'm going to switch it now to just comments and questions, and maybe start with anybody who's stuck, where they got stuck somewhere in the rescue. Let me know, because 90% of the time things go quite well, but there's some places where we can get a little entangled. So feel free to pipe up, and I'll see if I can untangle you if you're having some challenges. Otherwise, let's look at the ahas, the comments about how that went, and get in any kind of questions and things.
Christina, Joelle here.
Hi, Joelle.
I have a question in regards to part number 4, being a very literal sort of step-by-step person. What information specifically goes in that? You took us on this entire journey to go meet our orphan. And so, yeah, what is the intention of what is meant to go into that box for us?
Well, that's where your consciousness has to fill in the blank for you. And if your now consciousness can't do it, then that means call in the future self or the future self and see what they say. Because often when you get stumped about how the heck do I work with this part, I don't know what to say, that means you're in the same consciousness in a way that they are, and you don't have the resources. So that's where you need to stretch out to go find somebody in your consciousness, and there always is, who can address not only the orphan, but you, who's also stumped how to handle the orphan. Yeah. Does that make sense, Joelle?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I had that, but I was writing it in a different location. So I'm actually was able to access that, but
oh, good.
Clear on where specifically on the
yep.
image
you could put it in the soothing thoughts area, and up on that bubble that's kind of extra space at the top. Sometimes these dialogues can go on quite a while. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Val, wow, soothing thought. It's okay to be sad with the death of someone so close. You will be forever more compassionate to others after this. You're sad because you have so much love. How fortunate you have had that. Oh my goodness, I'm getting goosebumps given the presenting trigger that you came in with the ventilator conversation with your partner. Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Oh, sweetheart, good work.
Rondalyn had to leave, but she sent a message that she said I could share. She says, it has been tremendous. I feel less tension in my shoulders. And I know it sounds odd, but taller.
Doesn't sound odd at all. Yeah.
No, she made me cry. It was good.
That. You still have that forever in your heart. Yeah, love is love. That just stays with you throughout, multidimensional. Good to see you too, Mary. Heather, wow, wow, wow. The fear of letting down my community triggered an orphan who sustained a head injury and couldn't help community the way she wanted. I've given her a place with an assignment that she's excited about. She needs to heal, but has everything resource-wise to do what she wants to help me support others in meaningful ways. I'm feeling empowered. Excellent. Heather had to bawl her eyes out too for a moment. Yes, yes, it's emotional work. Really good to have made contact. Yay. You're welcome, Kaz and Aaron. Pat's crying too. Pat's a crier. Okay, so amazing how this is Sandra. So amazing how it zoomed me back to a vulnerable time, and I was able to show that things will work out fine, but we need to learn some other ways of dealing with anger and not with the role model in front of us who obviously showed us to be angry. That's massive. Good for you, Sandra. Marina, yes, you can share the ebook. If you keep the ebook as is, you're welcome to share that with other people. Yeah. And please direct them to my community support page where that stuff is. You're welcome, Carla. Thank you. Glad you feel blessed by it. Beautiful. Okay, if anybody wants to conclude by opening your mic and saying anything, you're welcome to. Comments, questions, just thoughts to the community.
Yesterday, hi Christina, hi everybody. Yesterday, I wrote that, and my trigger was people telling me how I should feel. That was yesterday, where I was inundated with people saying, look for the silver lining, and this is all going to work out. And I wanted to tell everybody to get lost, really,
Yeah,
to get lost.
You weren't there.
Yeah. I wasn't there. And so today, my message comes from how I felt yesterday, and a combination of today, and just sharing what I'm going to do is I'm going to feel what I feel, and it's all okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina, and everybody.
Good. Were you able to find an orphan that overlapped that, Shelley? So that now thing, don't tell me what to feel. Did you go back to something, you don't have to say what it was, but.
Oh, I've got so many choices.
Yeah.
Just pick one door.
Well, it might be that's called a mass rescue. You might want to just pick a bunch of them up. Yeah.
No, this is super, super helpful. Thank you so much for your generosity.
You're welcome. Thanks, Sally. And it doesn't mean you have to change any of them. It just means you just listen to them, right? You could have a little talking circle with them. They get to feel whatever they want to feel, say whatever they want to say, and make it all right. And then maybe teach them some stuff about how to work with things, depending on their ages. Yeah. Yeah, Bianca. So the orphan just being really active these few weeks, of course. So many people are with their families. So I'm going to assume that's what you mean with familial situation. Yeah. Helps understand what's going on, what's also going on in addition to the now. Okay, I think we might be there for today. I'm happy to stick around if anybody is stuck or the midway process with the orphan. Feel free to let me know if that's going on. Otherwise, I'm thinking how this is unfolding is becoming weekly. So I'm just kind of trusting my instincts. I'll see what happens, what the next week brings us. And out of those tools that are over there on the community support page, I'll just find my way to what I think is appropriate at that time. So thanks for coming and thanks for doing your inner work. Bye.